The sun, or what the humans called the sun, was just another glow in the massive dome of the Intergalactic Academy. Its light reflected off the metal and glass walls, creating a spectrum of colors that danced across the floor. In the middle of this grand hall, young students from dozens of species were scattered across classrooms, corridors, and training arenas. Among them was Lyra, a small human girl with sharp brown eyes, sitting quietly in the last row of a classroom designed for strategy and combat lessons. She wasn't the tallest, nor the strongest, nor the fastest. Humans rarely were, especially in this academy where some aliens were almost twice their size before even hitting their teenage years. But what humans lacked in physical dominance, they made up with something else. Something the other species often underestimated: determination and mind. Lyra was focused on the lesson, though not in the way her teacher might have hoped. The instructor, a tall blue-skinned alien named Karth, spoke of planetary defense strategies and fleet coordination. His voice was calm, steady, and filled with authority. But Lyra's attention was partly on her notes, partly on the other students. Some of the aliens whispered, chuckled, or waved their hands in distraction. Many were confident in their abilities. Some were arrogant, believing strength alone defined skill. Lyra didn't care about their attitudes. She cared about the game beneath the game, the hidden patterns in behavior, the tiny mistakes made by overconfident opponents. That was where humans could win. Suddenly, the classroom doors slammed open with a sound that shook the room. Students jumped in surprise, and Karth's lecture froze mid-sentence. All eyes turned toward the entrance. There, standing like a shadow larger than the doorway, was a figure so imposing that the chatter of the students fell silent instantly. The alien general who had come to inspect the academy was no ordinary officer. He was Threx, the legendary commander of the Xylar fleet, a towering reptilian alien whose reputation for ruthlessness and precision preceded him. His armor shimmered with a dark metallic sheen, and his claws scraped the floor as he stepped inside. The room felt suddenly smaller, the walls pressing inward, as if acknowledging the presence of someone who dominated space itself. Threx's eyes, slitted and golden, scanned the classroom, landing on each student in turn. When they finally rested on Lyra, she felt the weight of his gaze, but she did not flinch. Most humans would have tried to shrink away, to hide, to disappear in the shadows. But not Lyra. She straightened in her seat, pencil still in hand, and met his gaze evenly. "You humans," Threx said, his voice low, reverberating with authority. "You sit among the future leaders of this academy. Yet I wonder if your species deserves a place here. You think strategy comes from intellect? Perhaps it comes from instinct and strength. I challenge one human to prove me wrong." The words echoed in the classroom. A challenge from Threx was not a mere request, it was a statement. It was known across the galaxy that those who accepted his challenges often ended in embarrassment or injury. The room went silent. A few alien students whispered to each other, shaking their heads, some snickering at the thought of a human attempting to face Threx. The first instinct of most human students was to hide, to pretend they had not heard, to avoid drawing attention. Many aliens assumed humans were weak, small, and fragile, but Lyra did not hesitate. Her hand went up slowly, deliberately, as if rising through a pool of calm water. She did not stammer, she did not hesitate. She merely looked at Threx and said in her clear, unwavering voice, "I will accept your challenge." For a moment there was a silence so complete it was almost unbearable. The other students stared, mouths open, unsure if they should laugh or faint. Threx, however, tilted his head, intrigued. No human had ever shown this kind of courage or foolhardiness before. Most would cower, some would beg for mercy. But this human girl, she had met him eye to eye without fear. "You?" Threx growled, stepping closer, his presence filling the entire room. "You, a child in my eyes, would dare face me?" "I am a human," Lyra said calmly. We don't back down. We don't flinch. Karth, the instructor, opened his mouth, but no words came out. The other students were frozen, unsure of whether to cheer or hide. Threx's tail lashed behind him in agitation. He had underestimated humans for centuries, and now one was daring to defy him in front of witnesses. This was not acceptable. "Very well," Threx said finally, his voice dropping to a level that made the walls vibrate. "You will face me. Today. Here. Show me that your species is more than weak bones and fragile flesh." The announcement sent a ripple through the classroom. Aliens whispered in disbelief. Some were eager to watch a human be humiliated. Others were curious. Humans were unpredictable after all. Even small humans had been known to achieve the impossible through cunning and creativity, but no one had ever faced Threx and survived unscathed. Lyra stood up slowly, her movements deliberate. She was not tall, and she knew she could not match Threx in strength, but she understood something the alien did not. Humans were clever. Humans could see patterns. Humans could think in ways that were different from brute instinct. If she moved carefully, measured her strikes, and used her mind as much as her body, she might not only survive, but also win. Threx led the way to the training arena, a massive zero-gravity room that stretched farther than the eye could see. Holographic obstacles, combat drones, and floating platforms hovered in the air. This arena had been used for years to train the galaxy's finest students, but it was also a proving ground for strength and strategy. Lyra followed silently, keeping her mind sharp, observing every detail. The layout, the drones, the patterns of light. Every detail could be a potential advantage if used correctly. When they entered, the other students gathered outside the observation decks, craning their necks to watch. Lyra felt the weight of thousands of eyes on her, but she ignored them. She focused on the one that mattered most, Threx. The general towered above the arena's floor, claws tapping in anticipation. He did not speak but radiated confidence, certain that victory would be his. "Rules," Threx finally said, his voice cutting through the silence. "No lethal force. You may use any available techniques within the arena. But understand this. Failure will not be met with mercy. You will survive, but humiliation will be complete." Lyra nodded. Understood. Her voice was steady, unwavering. Even if her hands shook slightly, she did not show it. Humans often hid their nerves behind calm exteriors. It was a survival skill, honed over millennia. The arena lights dimmed, and a countdown began. 3, 2, 1. Threx lunged first, a blur of claw and scale, moving with the speed and precision of a predator. The other students gasped at his agility, though he seemed almost sluggish to Lyra. She stepped to the side, using the environment to avoid the first strike. Her small body moved with fluid precision, dodging and observing. Each movement she made was calculated, every step deliberate. The first strike missed, but it had revealed something crucial. Threx relied on power and intimidation. He attacked with force, but his patterns were predictable. If she could anticipate his moves, she could create openings, and that was exactly what she intended to do. For now, the battle was only beginning. The other students watched in silence, unsure of what they were witnessing. They had come expecting a swift victory for Threx, but Lyra's calm defiance had already changed the narrative. The human girl had accepted the impossible, had stared down the legend without fear, and had stepped into the arena ready to prove that humans were not to be underestimated. In that moment, one thing was clear to everyone watching. This was no ordinary human. This was someone who might just show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. The arena doors closed behind Lyra, sealing her in with General Threx. The hum of machinery and the faint scent of ozone from the combat drones filled the air. Lyra's heart was steady, though her mind raced. She was a human in a room built for aliens, a species known for strength, speed, and instinctive combat. She was small, light, and untested in this environment. But humans had a way of seeing what others could not, a way of finding solutions in the cracks that brute force overlooked. Threx stretched his claws, flexing them slowly, like a predator savoring the hunt. His eyes glinted with amusement, almost like he was enjoying the thought of crushing this human girl's confidence. "We begin," he said simply, and without another word, lunged. Lyra moved instinctively to the side. Her first lesson had already begun. Observe. Don't react blindly. She noted the way his claws cut through the air, the slight hesitation before a swing, the rhythm he seemed to follow. Every movement revealed a pattern, and every pattern revealed a weakness. The first few strikes were fast and brutal, but Lyra dodged carefully, using the floating platforms and holographic obstacles to her advantage. She wasn't trying to overpower him. She was learning him. Every swipe of his claws, every step he took, added pieces to the puzzle she needed to solve to survive. After a few minutes, Threx stopped and lowered his arms. His breathing was steady. He did not seem frustrated. Most humans would have panicked by now. Most humans would have fled. But Lyra stood there, her chest heaving slightly, eyes sharp, calculating. "You are observant," Threx said, his voice echoing in the vast arena. "Most humans crumble in the face of speed and power. Why do you not?" "I watch," Lyra said simply. "I learn. That is how humans survive." Threx snorted, a sound that rumbled through the metal floor. "Survival is not enough. You must prove that humans are worth more than mere persistence." "I intend to," Lyra replied. The rest of the day was spent in training. Lyra moved across the arena, dodging, weaving, jumping between platforms, and observing Threx's attacks. He was fast, yes, and powerful, but predictable. Each strike followed a pattern, each step revealed intent. Humans were not the fastest, but they were adaptable. Lyra began anticipating his moves, creating openings in his rhythm. When she slipped and nearly hit the ground, she remembered something her mother had told her as a child. Small doesn't mean weak. Cleverness can be stronger than muscle. She focused on that idea. If she could outthink him, even for a second, she could create opportunities to turn the tide. Outside the arena, the observation decks were alive with whispers. Students crowded the railings, watching the unlikely contest. Some aliens were openly mocking her, expecting a swift defeat. Others leaned forward, curious. Humans were known for strange and unpredictable behavior, and no one could be certain what she might do. "Why do you not fear him?" whispered a young Vrixian student to another. He could crush her with a single strike. "She is human," the other replied. "That means she doesn't give up. She plans. Humans are dangerous in ways we don't understand." Meanwhile, inside the arena, Lyra began using more than just her body. She experimented with the holographic environment, causing platforms to shift slightly to test Threx's reactions. She dodged one strike and intentionally led him into a low-hanging projection, observing how he adjusted. Every movement, every response added to her mental map of his combat style. Threx, for his part, seemed intrigued. He had faced countless opponents in his lifetime, but none had analyzed him with such careful attention. Most creatures relied on instinct or strength. Lyra relied on thought. She was small, but her mind was sharp, and that made her dangerous. As the hours passed, Lyra felt her muscles ache, but she welcomed it. Fatigue sharpened focus. It forced creativity. It forced adaptation. She began noticing subtle details, the slight shift in Threx's balance before a forward strike, the way his tail flicked to maintain equilibrium, the patterns in the way he moved between platforms. In a rare pause, she sat on one of the floating platforms, breathing steadily. Threx hovered before her, his claws clicking against the metal, and asked, "You are not afraid?"
"I am," she admitted.
"But fear is not weakness. Fear tells me what I must avoid." It teaches me to survive, and survival is only the first step." Threx tilted his head, impressed by the calm rationality in her voice. He had expected panic, excuses, or flinching. Instead, he found logic. Strategy, a mind that thought beyond brute force. "Very well," he said, his voice low. "We shall see if you can do more than survive." The next day, Lyra returned to the arena, this time experimenting with more complex maneuvers. She used the floating platforms to create angles of attack, to mislead Threx, and to force him into overextending. She noted the timing of his strikes, and even began feinting in ways that drew him into mistakes. For the first time, she sensed an opening. She realized that his arrogance and confidence were his greatest weaknesses. He assumed that a human could not outthink him, that a human would not take risks with precise timing. Lyra was a human. That assumption alone gave her power. By the third day, she had begun to anticipate Threx's most aggressive strikes. She dodged almost effortlessly, using the arena itself as a weapon. Each time she avoided a strike, she studied the patterns of Threx's counterattacks. Her strategy was not about hitting him, yet it was about learning, understanding, and exploiting the predictable. Humans had patience, and she had time. At night, when she returned to her small dorm room, she reviewed her notes and observed recordings of Threx's combat history. She compared his past duels to what she had seen in the arena. Each detail added to her strategy. Each pattern noticed gave her confidence. Humans were not the strongest species, but they were adaptable, clever, and patient. They could endure. They could win where others failed. The whispers among other students continued. Many doubted she could ever stand up to Threx, yet a few began to notice something extraordinary. Humans did not give up. They calculated. They observed. They adapted. Even if a human could not match strength with strength, they could match it with intelligence and ingenuity. Lyra was proof. On the fourth day, Threx decided to increase the stakes. He activated combat drones that moved unpredictably around the arena, adding distractions and obstacles. Many students assumed this would break her. They expected humans to panic, to falter, but Lyra smiled quietly. The drones moved in waves, forcing her to adjust constantly. Each strike from Threx was now accompanied by a new variable. But she adapted. She used the drones as cover, as shields, as ways to mislead Threx into thinking she would dodge one way while she moved another. She began to feel the rhythm of the battlefield, to control the flow rather than simply react. Threx noticed it too. His eyes narrowed. This was no longer just a test of speed or strength. It was a duel of minds. Lyra was learning faster than he anticipated, adapting in ways few aliens could. The fact that she was human made it even more remarkable. By the end of the fourth day, the arena was filled with silence. Lyra had endured countless strikes, dodged thousands of movements, and yet remained unbroken. Threx hovered, observing her with a mixture of curiosity and something unfamiliar. Respect, not for her species, but for her. A human who had defied expectations, who had turned weakness into advantage, and fear into a tool. "You may have learned much," Threx said finally, his voice cutting through the silence. "But the real test is yet to come. You must apply what you have learned. You must face me as an equal." Lyra nodded. "I am ready," she said. Her eyes glimmered with determination. She was tired, her muscles ached, and yet she had never felt more alive. This was what humans did. They endured. They observed. They adapted. And when the time came, they struck with precision, intelligence, and courage. Outside the arena, students whispered to each other in awe. The human girl had not only survived Threx's initial challenge, but she had also turned the training sessions into lessons for herself. The aliens began to murmur, slowly realizing something important. Humans were not just clever. Humans were dangerous when underestimated. And Lyra, small and unassuming as she appeared, was about to show them all exactly why. The arena lights dimmed to a soft glow as the observers on the decks leaned forward, eyes wide with anticipation. Today was the day the students had been waiting for. The duel between Lyra, the human girl who had survived Threx's training challenges, and the alien general himself. Every creature in the hall, from towering Xylarians to nimble Vrixians, watched silently. Even the instructors whispered to one another, murmuring in disbelief. Humans were known for cleverness, but standing up to Threx was something few could have imagined. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every gaze on her. Her muscles ached from the training, but her mind was clear, focused, and ready. Every move she had made in the past days, the dodges, the observations, the feints, was a step toward this moment. She had not come to survive. She had come to prove that humans were not to be underestimated. Threx entered the arena with slow, deliberate steps. His armor reflected the soft light, giving him an almost godlike presence. He stopped at the center and spread his claws slightly, testing the air, like a predator sizing up its prey. His golden eyes locked onto Lyra. "This is the moment," he said, his voice echoing off the arena walls. "Show me if your species deserves to exist beyond your small planet." Lyra raised her chin, meeting his gaze evenly. "I will show you," she replied, her voice steady. It was not defiance alone that strengthened her. It was preparation, knowledge, and confidence. Humans could be small, but their courage often made them dangerous. Threx lunged first, his claws cutting through the air like streaks of fire. The sheer speed of the attack would have crushed any ordinary opponent, but Lyra anticipated it. She dodged to the side, using the momentum of her movement to push off one of the floating platforms. She landed gracefully, her small frame twisting as she observed his next move. The general attacked again, faster and more precise, aiming to overwhelm her. But Lyra had learned his patterns. She used misdirection, stepping slightly one way, then another, drawing Threx into mistakes he hadn't made in years. Each strike she avoided gave her valuable information about timing, balance, and reach. The crowd gasped. No one had ever seen a human move like this. She was not simply avoiding the attacks, she was shaping them, controlling the flow of combat with her clever use of space and timing. Threx, for the first time, felt a flicker of doubt. He had underestimated her, and that mistake was dangerous. "You are quick," Threx said, his voice low. "But speed alone will not save you." Lyra didn't reply. She had learned that words in battle could be distractions. Instead, she focused on the rhythm of his strikes, counting the slight pause before each swing, noticing the way his tail shifted his weight. These details, invisible to most, were the key to survival, and eventually to victory. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. The arena felt timeless as they danced between strikes and dodges. Lyra used every part of the environment. Floating platforms became shields, holographic obstacles became traps, and the drones Threx had introduced during training became tools. One small human girl was turning the arena into her own weapon, bending the battlefield to her will. Threx's attacks grew faster, more aggressive. He tried to force her into mistakes, trying to corner her with sheer power. But humans were not predictable. Lyra used every feint she had practiced, every distraction she could create. She led him into false openings, then corrected her path at the last second. The alien general's frustration became apparent. He had faced many challengers, but few had outsmarted him in real time. Few had forced him to adapt mid-combat. At one point, Lyra drew him toward the edge of the arena, pretending to stumble. Threx lunged with all his strength, expecting to end the duel with one decisive strike, but Lyra twisted in midair, landing lightly on a platform above him. In the same motion, she nudged one of the combat drones. It spun toward him, forcing him to block. It was a simple move, but it revealed her understanding of combined strategy, environment, timing, and anticipation. The crowd erupted in whispers. Aliens who had mocked her now watched with astonishment. Humans were clever, but Lyra was extraordinary. She was taking every advantage she could see, thinking several steps ahead, forcing Threx to react rather than dictate. Threx roared, a sound that shook the arena. "Enough games!" he bellowed. His attacks became more desperate, more violent. Each strike carried more power, intended to end the duel. But Lyra had anticipated this as well. She had noticed that his strength increased when he got frustrated. That was when mistakes came, overextensions, slower recoveries, tiny openings that humans could exploit. Using the platform to vault herself upward, Lyra dropped behind him in a swift motion, causing him to twist awkwardly. She landed in a crouch, her eyes focused, calculating her next move. The human mind had prepared for this moment, and she had the advantage of patience, something even a powerful alien general could not match. "You fight differently than I expected," Threx admitted, his voice grudging, almost impressed. "You are clever." "I have to be," Lyra said, her voice calm despite the adrenaline. "Strength is not enough against you, I must think." The next sequence was a blur. Lyra moved with precision, using her small size and agility to create openings. She feinted left, then right, leading Threx into a misstep that threw off his balance. She combined this with the arena's elements. A floating platform shifted beneath him. A holographic projection created a visual distraction, and a drone nudged him at the exact moment he tried to regain footing. It was a symphony of motion and strategy. Threx growled, realizing he had been manipulated. "Humans are cunning," he admitted, more to himself than anyone else. "This is impressive." Lyra smiled faintly. She didn't underestimate him, but she had learned to use what she had. Her mind, her preparation, her courage. She would not rely on strength. She would rely on intelligence. That was humanity's greatest weapon. Finally, the decisive moment came. Threx swung his claw with all his might, intending to finish the duel. Lyra saw it coming a split second too late to dodge traditionally, but she had prepared a clever move. She leapt upward, twisting mid-air to redirect the force against the edge of a floating platform. Threx's momentum carried him slightly off balance, and he had no room to recover quickly. Lyra landed lightly behind him, pointing a palm toward his back, signaling victory, not through brute force, but through careful planning and perfect timing. The arena fell silent. Even Threx froze, processing what had just happened. No human had ever done this before. No one had ever challenged him like this and won. "You have bested me," he said finally, his voice low, resonating with disbelief and reluctant respect. "I underestimated your species, and I underestimated you." Lyra bowed slightly, not out of submission, but out of respect for a worthy opponent. "I did not underestimate you," she said softly. "I just prepared." Outside the arena, the crowd erupted. Students cheered, instructors nodded in approval, and even some aliens who had mocked her before now whispered in awe. Humans were small, yes, and weaker physically, but intelligence, courage, and patience could level any playing field. Lyra had proved it today. Threx straightened, his golden eyes meeting hers. "Humans may yet have a place among the stars," he said slowly. "Perhaps I judged too quickly." Lyra nodded. "Humans always find a way," she replied. The lesson was clear to everyone present. Courage, strategy, and quick thinking could overcome even the most overwhelming strength. Lyra's victory was not just hers. It was a testament to humanity. One small human girl had shown an entire academy, and an alien general. That size and strength were not everything. And as Lyra stepped down from the arena, breathing steady despite exhaustion, she knew this was only the beginning. Humans had won respect today, but more importantly, they had shown that they would never flinch when faced with impossible odds. The arena had fallen silent. Even the hum of the drones and the faint metallic echo of the platform seemed to pause as all eyes turned toward the center. Lyra stood there, her small frame calm but confident, while General Threx took a slow, deliberate breath. His golden eyes, once filled with arrogance, now reflected something new: respect. The realization that a human had bested him in a contest of skill and intellect seemed to settle into the massive alien's mind, and he tilted his head in acknowledgement. Outside the arena, the students who had watched the duel from the observation decks erupted into whispers and then cheers. It began quietly, a murmur of astonishment, but soon the applause and excitement spread like wildfire. Even the most skeptical aliens, who had doubted a human's capability, were now visibly impressed. The small human girl had faced one of the most feared generals in the galaxy and had not only survived but had outsmarted him. Lyra felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Her muscles ached from the relentless training and the intense duel, but her mind was clear and focused. Humans had endured countless challenges throughout their history, and this moment, though different in scale, carried the same essence: determination, courage, and the willingness to think in ways others would not. Thrax, who had remained standing but still slightly off balance from the final maneuver, finally spoke. His voice was calm, but carried authority and gravity that made the entire arena hold its breath. "You have done well, human. I admit I judged your species too quickly. I assumed weakness where there was none. You have proven that courage, intelligence, and patience can rival even the greatest strength." Lyra nodded slightly, keeping her expression neutral. She had not come here to boast. She had come to prove a point: that humans were clever, capable, and not to be underestimated. "Thank you, General," she said softly, "but I did not fight for your respect alone. I fought to show that humans have value beyond what appearances suggest, that we can survive, adapt, and win even when the odds are against us." The crowd watched in awe as Threx regarded her seriously. There was a long silence, and then, unexpectedly, the general stepped forward and extended one clawed hand toward her in a gesture that, in human terms, would be considered a formal acknowledgement of honor. "You have earned it," he said, his deep voice resonating with the weight of his words. "Perhaps humans are more dangerous and more impressive than I ever imagined. This duel will be remembered, and your name will be recorded among those who have challenged me and survived." Lyra accepted the gesture with a slight bow, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. She did not need to celebrate. Her actions had already spoken louder than words. In that moment, every human student in the academy felt a surge of inspiration. If a single human girl could face Thrax and emerge victorious, what could not humans achieve when united and determined? Karth, the instructor, finally spoke aloud, his voice carrying across the arena. "This is more than a victory for a single student," he said, his tone filled with awe. "This is a demonstration of what humans are capable of when they combine courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. Let this be a lesson to all species present here. Underestimate humans at your own risk." From the observation decks, some of the alien students began to nod. They had witnessed the duel firsthand and realized that brute strength, speed, or size alone were not enough. Strategy, adaptability, and clever thinking could turn the tide, even against the mightiest of foes. Lyra's victory had not just proven her skill, it had shifted perceptions. As the excitement settled, Threx spoke once more, addressing the entire academy. "Humans may have long been underestimated in the galaxy. Today that changes. Let all students remember that the smallest and the weakest are not necessarily the least capable. Observe, plan, and adapt, and perhaps you too may find that intelligence and courage outweigh raw power." The applause and murmurs of agreement filled the arena again. For the first time, many students realized that humans were not just another species among many. They were unpredictable, clever, and dangerous in ways that no other species could fully anticipate. Lyra had shown that humans could face impossible odds and win, simply because they refused to back down, refused to flinch, and refused to surrender to fear. In the days that followed, Lyra returned to her normal routine at the academy, attending classes, completing exercises, and quietly training. Yet the atmosphere around her had changed. Aliens who had once mocked human students now approached them with caution and respect. Humans began to speak more openly, share their ideas confidently, and take on challenges without hesitation. The ripple effect of Lyra's victory was evident. Even among the highest-ranking instructors, there was a new appreciation for what humans could do. They began to reconsider curriculum and training exercises, realizing that humans did not always conform to the expected limitations of their physicality. They could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast opponents in ways that brute strength alone could never match. Lyra's actions had become a catalyst for broader recognition of human ingenuity. Lyra herself did not seek glory or reward. She continued to train diligently, her eyes always observing, always calculating, always learning. She understood that a single victory, however impressive, was only a step in a longer journey. Humanity's potential had been glimpsed, but it was far from fully realized. There were other challenges ahead, other generals, other arenas, and other opportunities to prove that humans were a force to be reckoned with. The Academy's news systems, which transmitted stories across star systems, quickly picked up the duel. Reports spread not only among the students and instructors but also across the wider interstellar community. Humans, once considered minor participants in galactic affairs, were now viewed with renewed interest and caution. Leaders and strategists began to take note of the species that had produced such a resourceful, intelligent, and fearless young girl. Lyra's duel became more than a personal triumph. It became a symbol of human potential and perseverance. Threx, who continued to oversee the academy for several more days, watched the humans closely. He observed their determination, their adaptability, and their willingness to challenge authority and expectation without fear. He realized that humans possessed something unique in the galaxy, a combination of courage, intelligence, and persistence that could not be measured merely by size or strength. It was a lesson that he would carry with him long after leaving the academy. One evening, as Lyra walked through the quiet corridors of the academy, she reflected on what had happened. The duel had been intense, exhausting, and terrifying at times, but it had also revealed the truth about humans. They were not the strongest, the fastest, or the largest, but they were clever, patient, and courageous. They had the ability to analyze, adapt, and endure in ways that few other species could comprehend. And when faced with the impossible, they did not flinch. Her classmates, both human and alien, had begun to approach her with curiosity and respect. Some sought advice, others guidance, and many simply wished to understand the secret behind her calm demeanor and strategic mind. Lyra welcomed their questions, knowing that sharing her experiences could inspire others to embrace the qualities that made humans remarkable: observation, planning, and courage. In the coming weeks, the Academy would continue to test its students with increasingly difficult challenges. But Lyra had already proven that humans could not only survive but excel in the face of overwhelming odds. Her duel with Threx had become a benchmark, a story told repeatedly to emphasize that courage and intelligence could overcome brute strength. And so, life at the Academy returned to its rhythm. But the atmosphere had changed permanently. Humans were no longer merely small participants in the galactic community. They had shown that they could compete, adapt, and even triumph where others might fail. Lyra's actions had ensured that humans were seen, respected, and, most importantly, never underestimated again. In the quiet of her room that night, Lyra sat by the window, looking out at the stars stretching endlessly beyond the academy walls. She thought about the battles yet to come, the challenges yet to be faced, and the endless opportunities to prove humanity's worth. Her small hands clenched lightly in determination. Humans had survived countless trials throughout history, and now, among the stars, they had begun to shine in a way that could not be ignored. She smiled faintly, knowing that the duel had been just the beginning. There were greater trials ahead, other generals, other arenas, and other galaxies to impress. But for now, the lesson was clear to all who had watched. Humans were clever, fearless, and capable of achieving the impossible. One small human girl had stood against an alien general, and through her courage and intellect had changed the way the galaxy would see her species forever. The galaxy had learned a truth it could not ignore. Humans might be small, but they were not weak. They might be underestimated, but they could rise to meet any challenge. And as long as they did not flinch, they would continue to leave their mark among the stars. The days after the duel felt almost surreal to Lyra. The arena where she had faced General Threx had returned to its normal routines, but the echoes of her victory reverberated far beyond the walls of the academy. Students and instructors alike whispered about her brilliance, and for the first time in years, humans were being noticed not just as small participants in galactic affairs, but as intelligent, adaptable, and brave contenders. Every morning, Lyra walked through the corridors of the academy with a quiet confidence. She kept her head low, focusing on her studies, her training, and her own improvement. Yet wherever she went, eyes followed her. Students paused to nod respectfully, aliens whispered in curiosity, and even the instructors watched her with renewed interest. Lyra had become a symbol of human potential. Despite the attention, she remained calm. She knew that her victory against Threx was just one step. There were countless challenges ahead, countless arenas, and countless opponents who would assume humans were weak, and time and again she would need to prove that humans could not be dismissed based on appearance or size alone. One day, while walking to the library, she overheard a conversation among a group of alien students. "Did you see how she used the drones?" one of them said. "She wasn't just avoiding attacks, she was controlling the battlefield itself." "She's human," another replied. "I thought humans were fragile. I was wrong. Cleverness, patience, and strategy. We can learn from her." Lyra smiled faintly but did not interrupt. Humans rarely bragged, but they observed and reflected. Her mind wandered to the duel, replaying the patterns of movement, the timing, and how she had forced Threx into errors. Every small decision she had made in those moments had been calculated, a combination of instinct and analysis honed over years of practice and preparation. The academy, too, began to shift. Training programs were adjusted, recognizing that humans could think differently and needed opportunities to exploit their strengths. Instructors began to emphasize observation, strategy, and problem-solving over brute force alone. Even alien students who had once looked down upon humans were encouraged to study their methods. Lyra had not only proven herself but had inadvertently changed the way the academy approached education and training. General Threx, who remained at the academy for several weeks after the duel, observed humans with a new perspective. He began consulting with instructors on integrating human strategies into broader training modules. His opinion carried significant weight, and soon humans were no longer underestimated in academic exercises, tactical simulations, and strategic discussions. Lyra's victory had a ripple effect, altering perceptions not just within the academy, but across systems that relied on Threx's counsel. One afternoon, Lyra was called to a council meeting with the academy's leaders. The room was vast, filled with representatives from dozens of species. Holographic displays floated around the chamber, showing star systems, fleet movements, and training schedules. Lyra entered quietly, her small frame barely noticeable among the towering figures of Xylarians, Vrixians, and other alien races. "Lyra," Threx began, his voice calm but commanding, "your actions have changed the way humans are perceived. We would like your input on integrating human tactics into academy curricula and tactical exercises. Your insight could help shape the next generation of students, ensuring that they are prepared for challenges that cannot be met with strength alone." Lyra listened carefully, considering each point. "I believe humans excel in observation, patience, and adaptability," she said. "Training should focus on identifying patterns, predicting opponents' moves, and using the environment to advantage. Humans may be small or physically weaker, but we can outthink even the most powerful adversaries if given the opportunity." The council nodded thoughtfully. Several members who had once doubted her now seemed eager to learn from her perspective. Lyra realized that her role had evolved beyond student and competitor. She was now a teacher, a strategist, and a representative of her species' potential. Outside the council chamber, the academy was buzzing with discussions. Students were eager to apply the lessons they had learned from Lyra. Humans were no longer seen as fragile or limited. They were clever, adaptable, and capable of inspiring others. The interstellar community began to take notice. News of the duel spread across systems, and humans who had once been overlooked were now considered valuable allies, negotiators, and strategists. Lyra continued her own training, but now she incorporated what she had learned not just from her duel, but from observing the reactions of others. She tested new strategies, experimented with different scenarios, and mentored younger human students who were still unsure of their place in a galaxy dominated by larger and stronger species. She taught them that courage, observation, and careful planning could overcome almost any obstacle. One evening, as she stood on a balcony overlooking the city-sized academy, she reflected on the path that had led her here. She thought about the countless challenges humans had faced on Earth, the history of persistence, ingenuity, and courage that had defined her species. The duel with Threx had been a singular moment, but it was also part of a larger story, a story of humans refusing to be underestimated and finding ways to survive and thrive in environments that seemed hostile or impossible. Her reflection was interrupted by a soft voice behind her. "You have done more than you know," said Karth, her instructor, who had observed the duel and its aftermath closely. "You've changed the academy, changed perceptions, and inspired not only humans, but every species that witnesses your actions. This is a rare achievement." Lyra nodded, appreciating the sentiment. "I only did what I had to do," she said simply. "Humans don't flinch. We face challenges and find solutions. That's all there is to it." Karth smiled. "It's more than that. You've reminded the galaxy of something important. Courage and intelligence, even in a small package, can leave a mark larger than strength ever could. People will remember this for generations." And they did. Across the academy and beyond, the story of Lyra's duel with Threx spread. Students recreated simulations of the fight to study her strategies. Instructors referenced her techniques in lessons on adaptability and tactical thinking. Aliens who had once dismissed humans began to approach them with cautious respect, recognizing that intellect and courage could rival raw power. Lyra continued her training, knowing that the galaxy would not remain impressed forever. There would be new generals, new arenas, and new challenges. But she also knew something vital. Humans had a unique quality, a combination of mind, courage, and persistence that no one could replicate. That combination had been enough to win respect, and it would continue to carry them forward in the vast reaches of space. In the months that followed, Lyra's reputation grew. Humans began to receive opportunities previously denied to them. They were included in advanced tactical simulations, invited to participate in interstellar negotiations, and sought after for their unconventional strategies. Lyra became a mentor, guiding her peers to understand that limitations were not always physical, and that even the smallest, seemingly weakest individuals could achieve remarkable outcomes through observation, intelligence, and unshakable courage. One night, as Lyra gazed out at the stars, she thought about how far humans had come, from a single blue planet to now being recognized across multiple star systems. The duel with Threx had been more than a personal victory. It had been a statement. Humans were not weak. Humans were not fragile. They were capable, clever, and fearless when necessary. And above all, humans did not flinch in the face of challenges that seemed impossible. Her thoughts were interrupted by the distant hum of the Academy's systems. Somewhere in the galaxy, humans would continue to prove themselves, building on the foundation that Lyra had helped establish. She knew that this was only the beginning. There would be battles, negotiations, and tests far greater than anything she had faced. But humans had already shown their potential. They could survive, adapt, and triumph where others might fail. Lyra took a deep breath and smiled. The galaxy had witnessed what a human could do. Now it was time to continue proving that humans, though small, could leave a lasting mark on the stars. Her journey, and the journey of her species, was far from over. But the first steps had been taken, and with courage, intelligence, and persistence, there was nothing they could not achieve. In the quiet of the night, under the endless expanse of stars, Lyra felt a sense of peace. She had faced the impossible, and she had won. Not with strength, not with speed, but with the qualities that defined humanity: cleverness, courage, and the refusal to flinch. And in doing so, she had ensured that the galaxy would never again underestimate humans. The stars outside the Academy twinkled, as if acknowledging her resolve. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had taken its first true steps toward being recognized as a force capable of shaping the cosmos. And Lyra, small human girl though she was, had been the spark.